Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. It's Halloween. That means everybody goes crazy. Kash Patel wants you to believe that he stopped all kinds of weekend terrorist attacks. Maybe he's trying to get into good graces. Who knows? We'll chat about that. It is the broadcast for October the 31st in the year of our Lord, 2025, promoting God, family, country, protecting life, liberty, and property. That's who we are. That's what we do. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris wanting to push the voter age to 16. She'll tell you why in a minute. FBI Director Kash Patel's in the news. Wow, has Lance Twiggs gone missing? An appeals court in Wisconsin is in the news. The National Guard is in the news. This is necessary, people in Memphis say. Don't buy certain secondhand things. Don Lemon of CNN, trashing women. We'll talk about all that. It just gets better from there. Dr. Bradley, welcome to Liberty RoundTable Live, sir.
Well, thank you very much. It sounds like you've got a plethora of fascinating topics that we're going to be covering. I guess we're going to be together for a couple hours this morning, right?
Roger that. Yes, sir. We're also going to cover the incredible weekly webinars conducted by Dr. Scott Bradley every Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Mountain. You can go to his incredible website, To Preserve the Nation. Oh, no, it's freedomsrisingsun.com, right? All right. freedomsrisingsun.com. That's where you sign up and you can get an invite to the weekly Q&As on the Constitution and more. They had a ton of questions last night. 6 were covered. We'll get to all of them, and we'll merge them in with some topics that I have as well. So we just have a barn burner broadcast on a freedom-loving, fantastic, faith-filled, we're taking America back, one heart, one mind, one issue at a time. Halloween. How's that? All right, let's kick it off with the Schumer shutdown. I believe this is a dishonest ploy by the Democrats to blame it on Schumer. They're all guilty of the shutdown, all 535 members. The House, 435, worse than the Senate. At least the Senate's doing some things. Mike Johnson telling everybody to go home. In my opinion, it's a clown show to say the least. Shame on Mike. He should be passing piecemeal legislation. He should be funding the air traffic controllers, first of all. There's a lot of things that he could be doing piecemeal, but no, they want to make a mountain out of a molehill with this thing, blame it on the opposite party, play divisionary partisan politics till the cows come home. So it's now called the Schumer shutdown by, quote, government/media label. President Trump now, though, is sick of it. He calls on the Senate to go nuclear and eliminate the filibuster. Amy Curtis over at townhall.com has the whole story. Trump's just sick of it. He can't take it anymore. My problem is you get rid of the filibuster, and it's great when you're in charge. It ain't great when you're not, Doctor.
You know, the filibuster has been diluted over the last couple of centuries to the point that I don't know if you can take it much further down without having democracy take rule. And everybody goes, oh, good, democracy. No, it's not. This nation was never to be democracy. It was always and forever supposed to be a constitutional republic. And the minority's voice should be heard. And that's in every instance of what's going on. And the rules that were written, the rules of engagement, if you will, like think of it as parliamentary rules, that the Senate is to. Thomas Jefferson wrote those in the time that he was vice president because he had nothing else to do. And the idea was to give every voice a chance to be heard in the Senate. It was to be a diplomatic statesman body, a little more mature than the raucous voice of the House. And at one point, the Senate, basically one senator could say, we ain't doing this until you've heard me, and then they could vote cloture and then they could move ahead. But the fact of the matter is, just because Trump is a little peeved about something that he hasn't got his way on, and he's kicking his feet into the floor and pounded his fists on the floor as a spoiled child, this is a tradition that is given the opportunity for opposition to get their say. And we're seeing right now, it's being abused, obviously. And I mean, we don't have any adults in the room right now, I don't believe, from the administration down through, generally speaking, the House and the Senate. But It's going to
And
come
that's
back
why
and
my
bite you.
common sense single piece legislation is the answer. Literally up and down votes on simple, clear, easy to understand issues, right? So, for example, I'm not really a SNAP guy. I don't believe we ought to have federal government SNAP at all. And I think Trump is wise to shut SNAP down and push the states to do more and get it out of the federal government's purview. There's no mandate, there's no delegatory authority for the general government to be involved in food assistance around the, United States in the first place. So I commend that. The problem is that I don't really support 100% just turning SNAP off one day because I think there's a way to, work our way out of it. In other words, hey, we don't got to deny SNAP to everybody at first. We can find out who really needs a transition, who really needs to get off their derriere and go to work, who needs to, but see, that needs to happen at the local level where people can really assess what's really going on. See, we're not doing those things, but you could literally, easily, hey, if SNAP's the big battle, let's partially, temporarily extend SNAP for certain people. Not that I'm for that socialist plan, but you can't crash the plane, right? So they could put together, but see, Mike Johnson's just asleep at the wheel. He's not even there. He's just going home every chance. This whole session, he's gone home every chance he's got.
Well, basically, they took August off. They took from the middle of September on all the way through October. You're right. They've been asleep at the wheel, but the fact of the matter is, what's going to happen with SNAP? You got something like 42 million people that take that.
That's what they claim, yeah.
But here's the deal. I mean, and this is maybe a little side note, but people need to think about this. We got our money back by the full faith and credit of the United States government. We've been feeding people on the United States government taxpayers' back. Everybody's saying, I got a free lunch here and everything like that. And suddenly the United States government goes dark on this thing. People need to wake up and recognize that when they put their eggs in one basket, which is an unconstitutional basket, expecting to be supported by the mother of all abominations, almost, in my opinion, you can find that the government can fail, and it has, and it is.
You even have 25 states now suing the Trump administration over SNAP, right?
Well,
it's a disaster.
Well, the problem, there's so many problems, we can't even discuss them all, but the fact of the matter is, all people should carefully reread their Constitution. There is no authority to redistribute any wealth at any time for anybody, whether it's a foreign.
It's not Article 1, Section 1, thou shalt promote SNAP and feed everybody in the world.
Well, they try and use the general welfare clauses in the preamble and in the Article 1, Section 8.
Well, we certainly don't have general welfare right now, I'll tell you that.
General welfare is predictability and stability. That's how the Founding Fathers used that term.
A level playing field, honoring contracts, right?
It was good government, which prevented domestic violence. It prevented foreign invasion. It made sure the economy didn't fail because it had honest money, those kinds of things. And there's nothing in there about a dole. The dole has nothing to do with the general welfare clause.
All right. Now, you guys talked a lot about the shutdown last night at the webinar too, right?
We did. That was one of the issues that came up. And yeah, absolutely. I think the push point of the SNAP thing may snap this thing. When you get the voices of 42 million people, and I don't know if you've seen some of the articles, people are talking about, killing and roasting people that are against SNAP and then eating them. I mean, this is barbaric in where they're going with this thing. And so the pain points with the shutdown have kind of been a little bit rolling. The Schumer shutdown thing that they tried to pin from the beginning, it's kind of caught on, and it's become kind of a general term that's in popular usage. But the fact of the matter is, this SNAP thing, I think, was an unintended consequence that the Democrats never thought about when they refused to do the continuing resolution. It would have kept the government open. The military would have been paid.
The problem for the Republicans is it's really it's the Democrat business as usual bill that the Democrats won't go for now, and the Republicans are holding on to like a death nail, right?
Well, everybody will go down with the Titanic on the thing, but the fact of the matter is that suddenly, as of tomorrow, there'll be no more food stamps. That's what SNAP is. I mean,
yeah, but that's what they claim. But here's what will really happen: a judge will overrule and partially force government to find money for SNAP temporarily. That's what's going to happen.
Well, maybe so, but there's some pretty hard, fast rules about availability of funding that these arrogant elitist judges sometimes think that they can wave a magic wand and make money out of thin air. Wait a minute. The Fed already does that. The government goes along with
Yeah,
this.
you do. You can't have competition. You'll go to jail, right?
Yeah. So this is going to be a kind of a rough and tumble, bare knuckles kind of thing. I think it turns into, but it may.
So what do you
It
think is going
may.
to happen with the shutdown, Doctor?
Well, I've been saying it may go on through Thanksgiving. I guess we got to take a break here pretty quickly, don't we? But I'm concerned that we're going to do some more stupid things. That's about what it boils down to.
I got an interesting question for you, ladies and gentlemen. What would a Halloween broadcast be without Kamala Harris? You know what I'm saying? Got to have Kamala Harris if you want a Halloween show, don't you? Kamala Harris is pushing to lower the voting age to 16 years old. She'll tell you why.
I'll tell you why. So, Gen Z, their age about 13 through 27. They've only known the climate crisis. They missed substantial parts of their education because of the pandemic. If they're in high school or college, especially in college, it is very likely that whatever they've chosen as their major for study may not result in an affordable wage. They've coined the term climate anxiety to describe fear of not only being able to buy a home, but that fear will be wiped out by extreme weather, but fear of having children. It is expected that Gen Z will have 10 to 12 jobs in their lifetime. They are a larger number than boomers. They're a specific generation of people who are going to impact our nation and the world. And I think we must invest in them, but I think that they are rightly impatient with a lot of what is the tradition of leadership right now. And if they were able to vote, because they know everything that's happening right now is going to impact them more than anybody older than them, for the most part, in terms of how these systems work. If they're voting right now at 16 and up, they're going to be talking about the importance of climate. They're going to be talking about the importance of figuring out how AI is going to affect the future of the workforce. They're going to be focused on what are we really doing about affordable housing. And basically in politics, here's the hard truth about this. There are two centers of power that tend to influence how politicians think. Groups that vote the most and people who write the most checks.
All right, let's go ahead and stop there.
And I'm going to...
She just exposed that she's just a clown. I pay attention to the people who riot the most, basically, and people who write me checks. I don't look at the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, and keep my oath. I don't have a moral compass. I'm just telling you, baby, you woo me and you give me money, I'm in. I mean, that's basically what she says at the end of this. And she really wants to reduce the voting age to 16 years old, Doctor. What do you think of that?
Well, and the biting sarcasm that I will probably put on this won't be fully appreciated, but she sounds real diplomatic and statesmanlike right there. I think she's still looking to gain some credibility in some way.
I think
But none
somebody
of
withheld
this.
the sauce for that one, Doctor.
We'll say again.
I think somebody withheld the sauce before she did that video.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, no. She's here's what she's doing. She's promoting the idea that the secular humanist, godless indoctrination centers that violate the First Amendment because it is an establishment of religion called the United States education system has mostly affected, each generation it gets more deeply entrenched in what our national psyche is. And she sees that these 16-year-olds have become dedicated socialists, if not communists, through that indoctrination system. She wants to facilitate and accelerate the movement of that country this way. That we got this 26th Amendment thing that talks about being 18 and older. But the fact of the matter is, why not let 2-year-olds? I know it's ludicrous, but it's ludicrous for 16-year-olds. Most of the 16-year-olds today, sadly, have to have somebody hold their hand across the street. I mean, they're woke. They are, I mean, they think you can be a fuzzy or a furry or whatever the heck these things are. You can choose your gender. You don't have to have any kind of logic, reason, or intelligence behind anything. There's this DEI thing that's been ingrained in their brains. And basically, Kamala is saying, I mean, she used less word salad than she normally did. She had less of a cackling, witchy laugh than she often does.
I
It
know,
was,
and the sad part is, for a Halloween video, we didn't even get the cackling laugh. Come on,
you really should have
Molly,
picked
you're letting
something.
us down.
Yeah, there should have been something like that. But the fact of the matter
So I
is
got a
that's,
question. So you just basically you trade in your trick or treat card for a vote card, Doctor?
well, I think so. But you know, it's been played that way for a long time. I remember as a kid, my next door neighbor, kid the same age as me, we were going to go out trick or treating. You know, we were in elementary school, and he took a UNICEF can around with him. You know, the United Nations UNICEF organization. And the idea was, rather than asking for a piece of candy, you were going to ask for a donation to go to the United Nations. And so they'd been indoctrinating the kids that way. And this guy was a little smarter than the average bear, I guess. He took his UNICEF can to take some coins, but he also took his own trick or treat bag because he didn't want to miss out on the freebies. But the fact of the matter is, there's always been an effort to downplay anything of maturity, of confidence in the history and the knowledge base about what goes on. I remember one time I was speaking at an event, and there was a class of high school advanced placement kids, a history advanced placement group, a cadre of all of them. They were a cadre. They were more apparatchik prepared. Probably now they're in those positions in government. But their advanced placement history teacher had assigned them to come and heckle me, basically. And they were going to debate and discuss and throw things out and shout things from the audience and everything like that. And again, they were not qualified to cross the street alone, let alone to provide the leadership that's necessary to keep a stable, productive, and a society that hasn't been basically overthrown by the communist movement.
No
It was
doubt about it.
so fascinating to me how they had been primed to become agitators. And so,
Well, and that's what's happening here. And she's trying to, you got this Greta Thunberg who spoke to the United Nations to make your point. I'm not here to attack her for her disabilities. I'm just here to say, how much she really knows versus how much of a propaganda, but she was 16 when she started her climate change promotion. And now we're kind of filling into that. Kamala claims that teens fear they're going to be wiped out, Doctor. Do you know any kids that just flat out fear they're going to be wiped out?
no, most of them haven't even thought about moving out of their house yet, and they think
I
that
don't think they're worried about being wiped out every time they wake up from climate change. It's just absolute propaganda from Kamala's. Now, I happen to have a bunch of children that are in this age range. I've probably got maybe 4 or 5 children in this age range, Gen Z, right? I missed the baby boom by a teeny bit, but okay. And I don't know a single one of my kids that are worried about being wiped out. And I don't know that any of my kids are too afraid to have kids. Now, they do say, man, kids are going to be expensive as all get out. But that doesn't mean they're not willing to have them. I just find it very, very interesting. I don't have any of these issues with all my 4 or 5 kids. I've got one kid that's 27 or whatever. Do you count that? She said the age was 13 to 26. So, but I'm counting 5 of them if it's 27 and under, right? All of them are adults except for one is 17. So, and I've got 10 grandkids. I don't think they're too afraid to have children. I really don't. Several of those children, at least 5 of them, are from this Gen Z that are supposedly afraid to have kids. And when they wake up, I mean, I've never heard my daughter come to me and say, Dad, I'm thinking I'm going to be wiped out, I've just never had any of that. And I've never heard that from any of the youth. And I'm involved with youth all the time.
part of the big problem you've got, Sam, is that you
Yeah.
didn't raise them in the indoctrination centers called the public school system.
And you call that a problem.
Yeah, I'm just again sarcastic guy this morning, but it's really true. I do have to tell you
All
that
I can say is thank the good Lord for that. No wonder they're normal.
yeah, that's right. I mean, see, my outcry, my pleadings with people, I cajole people constantly, to use George Washington's term, that they get them out of that indoctrination center, that they take away that false religion of a faith-based system that has no deity except for man's wisdom. I will tell you, though, that there were times when I had little kids and I was working under the mountain in Cheyenne Mountain Complex. That was where we were going to, remember the big Cold War days, we were going to respond to the Soviet attack. And we were all, they used to say, I was a DOD contractor. They used to say, yeah, you guys are going to die under the mountain with us because we were going to go button up until all the nukes went off, and then nobody could, go out into that nuclear winter. And I remember my little kids sometimes at night would say, Dad, we're all going to die. I say, why? Say, because of that mountain over there. Well, what's wrong with that mountain? Well, somebody's going to make sure everybody gets attacked. And I said, no, that mountain's there to keep you from being attacked. But so my little kids probably had much more, shall we say, stress and pressure about, the Cold War thing. I mean, as kids, we used to regularly, not every day by any means, but weekly probably.
I think the kids of today are just frustrated when they have to have like commercials in their music.
On their YouTubes,
the commercials. It's just brutal out there.
We used to get, you'd have to go to the lowest point in the school, get under a desk, away from the windows because the blast would blow the windows across.
It'd just be crazy town. I remember all that as a kid and stuff. Anyway, it's just very interesting. Kamala trying to somehow get back in the game. I don't think she has a prayer on this earth to get back in the game. That's just my opinion. All right, I actually endorsed Kash Patel for the FBI. To be honest with you, I wish I hadn't. Why? Well, I'll tell you what he's doing right after the pause. FBI Director Kash Patel is at odds with some people, and it's over the Charlie Kirk assassination. I find that very odd, to say the least. Dr. Scott Bradley's with me, freedomsrisingsun.com. We're syndicated by the Loving Liberty Radio Networks, lovingliberty.net. Download the iPhone and the Android app and listen to the radio. We're working on putting videos in the app, too. It's going to be great. Hang tight. We're available everywhere incredible videos are watched. How's that? Hang tight. Liberty Roundtable live. All right, back with you live, Dr. Scott Bradley, yours truly. It is the Halloween broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. And we played a clip from Kamala Harris. She actually didn't have word salad. Somebody must have withheld the sauce and said, do your video first. You can have the sauce after. But she wanted to push the voting age to 16 because she says they're scared of climate change. They're just scared of getting wiped out, all these Gen Zers, and they're afraid to have any kids. Well, I think the reason they're afraid to have any kids is because you guys have the taxes so sky high that it takes two people to work and they're still struggling. But I digress. I'm frustrated with FBI Director Kash Patel, ladies and gentlemen. I endorsed him in writing, and I wish I hadn't really. And here's the deal. FBI Director Kash Patel now halted a probe by Joe Kent. Who's Joe Kent, you say? He's head of the National Counterterrorism Center, into possible foreign involvement in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, I don't really know what the battle about is internally. And, oftentimes it's hard to be an armchair quarterback when I don't have all the facts. But Kent was examining FBI files for foreign links to Mr. Robinson. But he faced opposition from Kash Patel for allegedly overreaching his authority. High-level discussions involved Kash Patel, Kent, Vice President J.D. Vance, and other top officials, including Pam Bondi, highlighting a, quote, jurisdictional dispute between the FBI and the Counterterrorism Center. Kent's investigation, believe it or not, suggested potential foreign funding and links to groups like Antifa, though it remains uncertain if the probe into foreign ties is still ongoing. We don't know now. But as far as we can tell, Kash has a problem with it. And my response to Kash Patel is very simple. Kash, you were talking big time at the start of this thing. You said, "Oh, we got the guy." You didn't. "Oh, we got the guy." You didn't. "Oh, we're on. Oh, now we got the guy. He's guilty as sin." If no if ands or buts. Hey, let's close anything into this investigation. Oh, let's have the local college put pavers over the spot where it was. Let's just manipulate the crime scene beyond recognition. And then Kash Patel, you're going to fight with Joe Kent, who's trying to find out if there's foreign terrorism links? What on earth is happening, Doctor? Some of the people we thought might be the best to tell us the truth are now covering up the Jeffrey Epstein reality, covering up this Charlie Kirk scenario now. It is just disaster. And these people we thought would be, they were talk show hosts. They were well-known public figures, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, and they were going to go in and clean house and get it done. Donald was going to go ahead and do it. And, hey, it's not about retribution, but it is about stopping criminal activity. None of it's happening, Doctor. None of it. In fact, they're in the middle of the cover-ups, it seems to me. And you can say, Sam, you're babbling without any knowledge. That may be true. So give me some knowledge then. That's my response. If I'm talking out of turn and I don't know, then you got to give me some info. How long has it been since Charlie Kirk got assassinated?
A month and a half.
Month and a half, 6 weeks, and we don't have a single thing except for Tyler did it by himself. Well, now it turns out that Tyler's, whatever you want to call this person, roommate is what I like to say, has Lance Twiggs gone missing? That's the next question. People don't even know where this guy is. Well, last I heard from the government a month and a half ago, Lance was super cooperative. Now Lance is missing. Where is the guy or the girl or the trans, or I don't know what you call this person. Anyway, where is this person? And so I just look at this and go, you've given us literally nothing. You were babbling when you had all kinds of false information, talking all day. But now that it's like, now you're going to fight Joe on this? I just want the truth, Doctor. And I don't know if Kash Patel's helping me get there or not. And I have no way to know. That's the real problem. Your thoughts?
Well, there's obfuscation upon layer of obfuscation in this thing. Look over here, look over here. Oh, nothing to see over there, all that kind of stuff. I keep looking up at a plaque that's high up on the wall across the way from me. It's a George Washington statement that I have in front of me all the time. If I look up from my desk, there's but one straight course, and that is to seek truth and pursue it steadily. That's always, always, always at the forefront of the tip of my brain, if you want to think of it that way. And what we have here is, in my opinion, the very, very, very worst that this Tyler Robinson kid could be. I think it's a patsy. I believe that there's so little unassailable evidence. What they say, it's an air shut, upland shut case, airtight, whatever you want to call it, wrapped up in a pretty package and bow. And there's just nothing that has been reported that I think could not be very easily unraveled in a court case. I think they're trying to make everybody think they've got this all tied up. This foreign entanglement, I think they're looking into the wrong rocks. I really do. I think that, Antifa, it's got to be those bad guys. Back in the Biden days and the Obama days and everything, it was always a right-wing conspiracy. And in these guys' days, it's always a left-wing conspiracy. How about the biggest spy apparatus that the United States has operating against us in the world is not even looked at all, ever. Not at all. No, it's not the former Soviet Union. It's not the Chinese. It's not, Venezuela or whatever.
Well, now that you mentioned Venezuela, I have a late-breaking headline. This comes straight from the Miami Herald this morning. The Wall Street Journal said Trump hasn't decided on this, but now the Miami Herald and others, 411 and others, are saying, hey, the U.S. has decided to carry out strikes against military installations in Venezuela. This is disaster, Doctor. The government's shut down. Congress isn't voting. The House has been sent home, and Donald Trump decides he wants to go ahead and carry out strikes against military installations in Venezuela. Have we lost our minds?
Well, we talk about this often, about how virtually every president that's in their second term gets in trouble internationally. And very often it's to obfuscate problems at home. I mean, look over there, look over there. No, quit looking here. It's not the Epstein. It's not this
Yeah, you're a
meltdown in the
criminal for talking
economy.
about the Epstein files. We ought to arrest you, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the problem is that, there's such a deep and wide chasm between what's constitutional and what's happening in Venezuela. It's about regime change.
Yeah,
They've wanted
Robinson,
that for
he acted all
decades.
alone. Let's bury this story and focus on Venezuela now. Why do we want to focus on Venezuela at all? What have they done to us?
Well, Trump is trying to build the case that they've been involved in this narco stuff, but I think fentanyl is a bigger issue than what's coming out of Venezuela.
Well,
But
and we just met on the fentanyl discussion, and supposedly China's going to send less components to make fentanyl. They say,
send
right?
less. What a victory! Oh, we're going
Yeah,
to send less poison to kill your kids. No, I mean
right.
we should talk about that Trump thing maybe at some point, but no, there's just so many obfuscating kinds of things. Nothing to see here, folks. Move along. And you throw enough mud against the wall, and they'll forget about these client lists that are possibly out there. And you stop and think about some of the things that are happening within the domestic United States. The president's job descriptions is Article 2. Read it, go watch it, look at it. There's nothing in there about narco busting in international waters, and there's nothing in there about funding war zones in Europe and in the Middle East. And there's just nothing in there about taking bombs to foreign powers that, I mean, it's just one thing after another. They say, oh, they're the biggest terrorists in the world. But it depends on who's in the office. I mean, terrorists were the right-wing domestic guys in a couple of administrations ago.
Well,
And
terrorists are in the IRS, doctor.
well, there's no question about that.
I mean,
Why do
if your kids are afraid of climate change and afraid they're going to be wiped out, I've been afraid I'm going to be wiped out from the IRS for literally like 45 years now.
Well, they're building this fear. We talked about the just flagrant Amendment 1 violation of the school system. That's a faith-based religion that's being taught at taxpayer expense. It is an establishment of religion. All of these things.
I thought they were shutting down the education department, doctor.
Well, I haven't seen it happen yet. There's just so many things that just obfuscate where we ought to be looking right now. And I'm just really, as you say, sorely disappointed with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi was to me a much more open book. I opposed her being put in there. She's a red flag gal against.
Yeah, it's Susie
Second
Wiles that has been in charge of a lot of this carrying out. And Susie, we don't know a whole lot about her, but as far as I can tell, everything good that we want to happen, Susie Wiles is somehow involved in stopping or circumventing what we want, right?
I don't know where it is. It could be at the highest office in the land. I mean, this idea of foreign entanglements with potentially Charlie, they were looking at the wrong operation. They really were. Open the book. Let's read the examples of where paid assassins can come from a lot of different angles.
Liberty RoundTable Live.
We live in a time when it's the magician's act. When the magician has a big flourish above his head with his right hand and he's getting your attention there, you got to be looking at the left hand. And sadly, I think that's kind of the case we're in right now in the United States, where there's so much opportunity to have people look over there. I mean, at every shred of everything that's touted in the loudest voice possible, very often is exactly where the falsehood lies. I mean, you look about the weapons of mass destruction back in the Saddam Hussein days, and these things that Iran's going to have nukes in about 15 minutes. Every single stinking thing. Oh, we're not doing genocide in Gaza. No. Look back to October 7th. Look what happened there. And then you got tens and tens of thousands of men, women, and children being killed, innocent men, women, and children, in a whole open-air prison zone where nobody can come in or go out, and they're starving to death, and the bombs are going off. And No, don't look at us. My goodness, we're just defending ourselves. Every single thing that gets to be the big news, you got to look the other direction. That seems to be the case in point and the reality of today's world. So I guess if I'm being told to look over there, I kind of try to look at a different horizon almost. And maybe we've just got to get wise enough to do that thing. And always, always, always go back to the baseline principles. The narration may change, but the principles never do. And so pull out the limited government checks and balances. That idea of delegation of authority. Go read what the president's job description is, and it's not what he's saying it is. And go read.
All right. Well, we're possibly going to go ahead and carry out strikes in Venezuela. We've been carrying out strikes in what?
International waters.
Where?
International
waters. You've got stuff in Iran. You've got stuff in Russia. You've got stuff with Israel and Hamas. They claim the ceasefire's in place, but it's kind of interesting to me. You got a ceasefire in place, but we breach it every few days, but we're saying it's holding. I don't really understand that, but there you go.
Sam, the thing that's really, really disgusting to me is when they send in airstrikes and kill over 100 people. Oh, it's still holding. Bravo Sierra, it's not holding, and you guys are the ones that are. Well, they shot at a Israeli soldier that came over some line that they supposedly weren't supposed to cross.
They gave back remains that somebody that wasn't really a hostage or whatever, and so the problem is that Benjamin Netanyahu is disaster. So are the folks in Gaza or Hamas, some of these people. But let's turn our direction home a little bit, Doctor, because I'm worried about this. The headline says the National Guard is establishing what are called quick reaction riot police units in every state. Did you see this headline?
No, tell me about it. This is more good news, I'm sure.
Okay. According to a, quote, Pentagon memo, each state, along with the District of Columbia and all U.S. territories, they say will have a team of about 500 soldiers trained in crowd control, tactics, and equipment usage, such as batons, tasers, pepper spray, and body shields. The initiative is named the National Guard Response Force, and it's set to be operational, they say, by January. The idea is the ability will be for them to mobilize a quarter of its members, so 125 within hours, half of their force within 12 hours, and their full force of 500 within a given state within a day. And this new, quote, mandate ordered by President Trump marks a significant shift in the role of the National Guard. You say they used to deal with kind of national disaster relief and that kind of stuff. Now they're being, quote, virtually militarized in every state in the union. There's been no discussion. There's been no congressional approval from what I understand. It's just happening. And I'm entirely uncomfortable. Now, here's the interesting last tidbit. Then I want you to talk about this, Dr. Bradley. You and I would say this is a big problem. You and I would be very uncomfortable with this, right? But here's what's interesting. Memphis residents, so kind of the first city they went into, not counting District of Columbia or Washington, D.C., which they do have a right to go in there, but they don't have a right to go in the states. However, the headline from from Tennesseans, this is necessary. Memphis, Tennessee residents praise Trump's National Guard deployment. Over at the Western Journal is where they have this piece. But I look at this and go, man, no one seems to even share my concern, Doctor.
Well, again, if we had a few minutes to discuss this, I'd read you some quotations by the American founding fathers.
You got 5, go.
Well, here's the deal, and I would probably want to quote directly their concerns, but I'll give you a general overview. They were very concerned with standing armies. That's why they have this 2-year limit on funding for military things, and they have this thing about the civilian control and all this kind of stuff. I guess I would ask you rhetorically a little bit, because it's a long answer, I'm sure, but the fact of the matter is, how far different is what they're doing right now than a standing army, where they have among them, and James Madison was very adamant about this. He said that This is how nations are bought into tyranny, is that they're captured. They usually call the military out for the good of the people. Right now, they get a military operation going, and pretty soon it metastasizes into some kind of tribunal of some sort. And that's kind of where we're going with this. The Third Amendment about quartering troops was about having troops among the population. They were sick and tired of having a military force in their presence. And there's so many ways we're going about this that maybe doesn't have to be a regular army guy that's living in your house, which is the way some people would probably try to define this. And that would obviously be bad because they're right there and they can squelch anything that your family's even talking about. And that's what the British governors did. But the point of the matter is, we're militarizing our police force with federal money. The local police, and I'm a strong believer in multiple levels of kind of independence, if you will, where the police force,
decentralization, checks and balances, rule of law, adherence to guidelines of due process, right?
Absolutely, but the local police are being basically bought off. They're hey, federal funds. Oh yeah, you need more vehicles. Just write up a grant for this.
They're either on the federal funds or they're illegal police forces going on too. You got illegal aliens being commandeered into law enforcement too these days, right?
Well, in Utah and several other states, it's legal for non-citizens to be on the police force. That's a whole big issue. That issue in Utah, and the Utah legislature passed unanimously, not one dissenting vote on that. But so all of these things on this of the enforcement and all that kind of stuff, yeah, there is a place that stable government, the general welfare clause we talked about earlier, where there was to be stability and predictability, and they were to prevent domestic violence and foreign invasion and the economy melting down because of false money systems and stuff like that. But what's happening is, in the name of giving us all security, we are suddenly deciding, well, we need the bigger government, the more centralized thing. And that's, sadly, if you look back at history, that's how nations collapse. That's how the Roman Empire was overcome. Bread and circuses plus the military enforcement and control. You look at Nazi Germany, you look at Pol Pot, you look at Mao Zedong, all of these centralized command and control things where they basically overcame, if you will, the local people and what their wishes were. And sadly today, not enough people are paying attention to what's going on. They're more interested in, the latest score of the football game and the standing in the national situations.
Yeah, they are. And the reason that Americans are, though, is because they've been rendered powerless to do anything about it. Guys like me care more about this than they do the sports teams, but I can't do anything about it, right? There's really nothing that I can personally do about it more than I'm already doing, right? I put my money where my mouth is. I spend hours and hours and hours, probably more time per week than almost anybody in the country, promoting the cause of liberty, truly trying to be a truth teller, focusing on the things that are important. And I get frustrated that I can't seem to even hardly make a dent, right? I mean, I talk and talk and talk, and you say, well, Sam, why don't you do more than talk? I mean, the only other choice left is to run for office. The problem is that takes a gaggle of people on the ground to foot soldiers, takes plenty of money, which I have neither of. And so, again, this is where I just think people feel completely disenfranchised is the problem, Doctor.
Well, you're largely an exception in terms of the focus and energy that you put into this thing. Generally speaking, I think the general attitude of most people is, hey, how about the BYU team? They're undefeated, or, pick your poison, whatever team you're looking at. I just mentioned BYU because there's a guy I know that's a rabid patriot, he says, but you know what? I've never seen anything posted lately on his social media that gives anything other than the BYU stats. And most people are diverted, and we've got to get more people involved because we, the people, are really responsible ultimately.
You got that right. It's a fact. There's no doubt about it. The question is, how do you work together and move the needle? It's an epic battle that we shall never, I repeat, never give up on. For Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. Check out his incredible weekly webinars and his incredible collegiate series to preserve the nation, all available at freedomsrisingsun.com. I'm Sam Bushman, syndicated by Loving Liberty Networks, lovingliberty.net. Spread the word, share the love, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.